Today's episode is episode 7.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of the
And
Atkins
we're squinting.
Labcast. We're squinting because Kate has bought us a new ring light.
Yeah, but why did I buy it?
Because she wanted to look prettier.
No.
As if she needs to look any prettier.
No, because we recorded finally for the Rose update, and Karen and I, by the end, halfway through, we were sitting in absolute darkness going, is anyone there? And no one's going to be able to see us.
Yeah, we had a little bank, twin banks of LED lights at LEDGOs, they're called, that's
Whatever.
the brand. And we only had their battery pack for them,
things.
and they dimmed down. So I went on to ProTog's website.
Oh,
Shout
are
out to
they
ProTog.
sponsoring
I
us?
don't know. No one's sponsoring us. Except we are, Atkins. So we went to ProTog's website, ordered the power adapter for the LEDGOs, which we bought 10 years ago, it feels like, when LEDs first came out. Never used them. And we bought a ring light, which is like looking at the damn sun.
It really is.
So if
I
we're
have to
looking
record
extra-
with this in a minute.
I know.
I have to record with this because I'm doing a recording on how to do a vinyl package because it's like bloody confusing. So I'm doing a thing and I'm going to be bloody glowing, and my weird shaped glasses are going to be even weirder with these bing circles in them.
I love those glasses. They're very cool.
They don't fit apparently, according to my optometrist lady.
So you told me that I'm an old man
Yep.
earlier today.
Sorry, darling.
Is that okay?
I'm fine with that.
I suppose. What
I'm
else
fine
goes?
with that. How you feel about being an old man?
I think I'm okay with it. But when
You know, the podcast listeners all think that we want, they're like, can you be my mum and dad?
Right. Okay. Shall we get on to the next topic?
No, because we're old.
I know we are. I'm 50 this year.
You're not supposed to tell everyone.
Oh,
They're supposed to go, yeah, Paul's totes old. He's like 42.
You're 42 or
Hey,
44
settle down now.
or something. I don't know.
You don't. That goes against all the fucking rules, you dickhead.
Okay. So what? Our guest. Who is our guest this week? Who is my guest this week?
The delicious Kristen Cook.
She is delicious. That is for sure.
She is.
Yeah,
Pretty great.
It was an awesome episode, and it was great because she is one organised little sausage.
Yeah, look, it's a real it's a bit of a business episode. Like, it's not, oh my God, I had a feeling in my, sorry, I'm being mean about people with feelings now. But, it's not a like, this is my art and this is how I feel about my art because it connects to deep in my soul or any of that. It's like,
Yeah.
give them what they want, babies. Make all the fucking money.
Well, she wasn't very much a make all the fucking money type of a person, but she's very much.
But she is you're in business. It's not a hobby.
Yeah, and that's what I really
which
like.
is really good.
Yeah.
Because guess what?
We all need that.
No, but and it's interesting. You said a thing in there. You said, "Oh, it's the artist model," and I object to this idea that artists are somehow like sort of so desperate to do their art, quote unquote, that they give it away.
No, I'm not thinking artist model as in the poor starving artist model. I'm thinking the artist model as in the sole trader who is, if they went around, the business would not make anything. Am I keeping you up?
Honey,
You can't yawn.
I have to yawn sometimes.
You can't yawn at people. It suggests that you're bored with them. Back on the microphone.
I have been with you for 25 years.
Don't yawn at me, please. I don't like it.
Okay, if I don't yawn, right, we're going to make an agreement. I will try really hard not to yawn, and you will have to be an active listener
Okay.
because you're a shit active listener.
So
Give it a go.
I'm nodding my head and tipping my
Okay,
head.
good.
That's what I meant to do, isn't it?
Yeah, not
tip,
look at your fucking
tip
laptop.
And nod, tip
Yeah.
and nod. So by artist business, I meant the sole trader who, if they weren't around, the business wouldn't happen. You can't get someone else to stand in and take your place.
Yes.
The artist business model. And it's also the business model where you are being commissioned to create something from scratch for someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that there's a formula you're applying.
Yeah, but you are to a degree because you have your thing that you do. You're not reinventing the wheel every time a client walks in.
No, you're not. And Kristen certainly isn't. But I think a lot of photographers run that way where they want to take a feeling from the environment that they've been presented with saying, hey, can you photograph this building or whatever? And their response to it is what people are paying them for.
Yeah.
They don't quite know what's going to come out with. And that's not a easy.
But that is also
I would say it's not a
that
great
doesn't
business.
necessarily go together with not making a crap ton of money. I mean, if you look at like Randy Larkham, commercial photographer, making a fantastic business.
Yeah.
He sells his rights. He's got it all organised. He and his wife work together. I mean, that's a quote unquote artist model, which is,
Yeah.
he goes away every year. We don't go bloody anywhere every year.
Yeah, no, he like that.
We
Is
barely
that is
even
true.
have a weekend every year.
That is true. That's right.
What day is it?
No, I don't know what day it is. It's
Saturday.
Hey, it's Saturday. So anyway, Kristen Cook is a great little wake up for those of you who are thinking business, thinking about, and look, the perfect example of how organised she's been. She's been able to actually stop work.
You need to
And
cough.
she's not stressed about.
Have you got the Rona?
Yeah, I got the Rona.
You have a cough button yet?
Yes,
Let's
that's
have
over
a
there.
fucking cough button.
She's actually been able to stop work and be locked down without any concern. So she's got enough money aside for that kind of a behaviour, which is really, not everyone can do that. So look, that's one aspect of it. But the other side of it is the singular beauty of her work. It is really spot on.
If we were to be really stupid and kind of Jesus-like and be able to have another baby, I would have Christine
Really?
shoot. I would have her shoot it.
Kristen, yeah.
Because Kristen's
What's
stuff is
this other baby coming?
No, there's no baby. I can't have babies anymore. But I just love her aesthetic. It's very different from a lot of I'm fidgeting with stuff. It's very different from a lot of baby stuff in that it's very sparse and very modern and clean and sort of
It's elegant.
it's almost architectural. Right. Like if you were shooting like
I wouldn't say
a Gary, like a Guggenheim, it's all those
Okay.
round things.
Right, yeah, Frank
those
Gehry
babies,
type, yeah.
those round babies.
Yeah,
and I've been on a baby shoot with my sister's twins, and man, do they work hard.
Yeah.
They are not. I don't care what they're getting paid. It's not enough. The babies shit on you, and they piss on you, and they puke on you, and they scream, and they cry, and they're crawling around on the ground, and the photographer's crawling around the ground, the photographer's carrying it and waving it around and swinging it and patting it, and the parents are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, little Jimmy." And I just don't understand how they make any money from it.
Yeah, and a shoot can take half a day with the blink of an eye.
Easily.
If the baby's
we
out of
did
cycle.
half a day shoot with the boys, and we got them in the little basket thing, and then one of them pissed halfway out the basket, and then the other one vomited, and we just kind of shoved the vomit down the corner of the basket.
Well, that's.
But I will say, if I was ever to be a photographer, which clearly not going to happen, because every time I pick up a camera, I start crying, except for when you're going to buy me my camera. When do I get my camera?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Anyone from Olympus that wants to send Kate a
Olympus,
camera.
call us. We love you. Give us a camera.
Hang on, what about Nikon, Canon?
Oh, whatever.
Fuji?
Did they have that live paint thing what's he talked about? That's what I want.
That ragged me to it.
I want but if I was to choose a genre, which I've said genre now 3 times for Karen H, who hates that word for some reason, I would pick the babies because I fucking love babies.
Yeah, babies. And the great thing about being a baby photographer is you take the pictures, then you give the baby back.
Yeah.
It's like being a grandparent.
You don't have to pay for their schooling or their healthcare or anything. You just get all the squeezes and all the cuddles.
Isn't that lovely?
And then you chuck them back and go, thanks for that. Piss off.
Baby photographer. Yeah, I don't think you'd do it though. You'd be too angry at the baby.
If they could give me the baby and then the parents would piss off so I don't have to make small talk. It's the small talk. It's the, this little Jimmy's very sick. Well, little Jimmy might look like a bloody bag of sausages for all we know, and I've got to pretend he doesn't.
Poor little Jimmy. Okay, so let's
look at you trying to stick to the time frame.
Trying to get
Fucking
people
hell.
back. Hang on, what is it now? It's now 9 minutes and 27 seconds.
Yeah, well, that's all right. We got 3 more minutes. We can talk shit.
Let's leave the listeners to go and listen to Kristen Cook and
Kristen
enjoy
Cook.
it, and then we'll be back afterwards for
a moment of what colour?
Okay.
Bye.
So how do we start these things again? I'm on the phone, the Skype phone, to Kristen Cook, who's one of my most favourite people in the industry, but she's so far away, and we haven't really seen each other for how long?
Oh, it's been years at least. I can't even. Oh gosh, maybe one of the APRA events, like.
I think so. Forever ago.
Yeah.
Forever ago. And you've seen Kate since, though, on the road trip.
I have seen her. I think the last time I saw her was when she was in Melbourne at Rupert in Collingwood a few months back.
That's right.
Well, like 2 years ago. No, it wasn't. It was about 6 months ago, I think.
Yeah, I think it was August last year.
Yeah.
I don't know. I lost her for a long period of time, and I was very jealous because she saw everybody, and I was here like in this. I mean, I love this place, but I do miss the travel side of it, and Kate's been doing quite a bit of that and running around. So where are you based in Melbourne? What part of Melbourne are you?
I'm in Caroline Springs, which is northwest of the CBD. So right now, if you were to go to the city, it'd take you 20 minutes.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah. But normally, probably about half an hour into the city. So for Melbourne, that's pretty standard, half an hour to most places. But yeah.
Oh. And tell me, now you're a baby and wedding photographer.
Correct. Yeah, portrait and weddings. Yep.
Chasing the love, huh?
Correct. That's exactly what I say.
I know. It's a really, I can see, I mean, I've known your work for a long time, but anyone who would go to your website, which I would encourage anyone to do, it's an exquisite website. It really is. You get the message that you're very singular about what you're trying to do with your photography.
Yeah.
You're trying to see that connection.
Yeah, and I think the decision to focus just on those couple of things, it's been probably 10 years now that's been a focus in the business, has been the best thing that I'd ever done, because I managed to kind of put to the side all the things that I didn't terribly enjoy too much or wasn't very good at, so wasn't really finding the joy in, and just concentrate on the things that I absolutely love and adore. And to be able to, I suppose, form that circular relationship with my clients and photograph their weddings, and then they have children, and then they have more children, and then you often see them so many times over the period of 5 to 10 years. I think my record now is a wedding, 4 maternity sessions, and 4 newborns, all from the same client within, I think, 8 years or something like that.
Isn't that wonderful?
Has been wonderful. So yeah, I love to be able to see that growth in each family as they keep coming back as well.
I think that's what, I think a lot of people get into family photography for that reason, so that they can be a family's connection in this world of recording stuff, and following them through. And if you can actually get that to work, it's pretty magic. It doesn't always work for people, but I can see with you, it's been a pretty consistent thing. Yeah.
And I think too, being able to shoot weddings at the same time actually makes me so glad to also photograph families. And the reason being is that with weddings, you have this monstrous event that happens, and it's incredibly stressful and chaotic and beautiful, and all of that all wrapped into one. But it's the one day, and then once that's finished, that's when the majority of your work then starts in terms of the culling and the editing and the production of all of these beautiful images. And then once you've delivered them to the client, that's it for your job. So there's a finite part of that process that is quite sad, to be honest, because you see people in the most beautiful stage of their lives in terms of coming together to get married, and then after that process finishes and you have to sit there in front of your computer and edit images and sit there in your own little bubble, that process with your clients finishes. And being able to then see them when they come back and have these emails that pop up and say, Kristen, we're pregnant, we'd love to have you photograph our baby or our pregnancy or whatever it is that's coming up. There's no greater joy when I get those emails, because it just brings back all of these beautiful memories from the wedding day. So in that sense, being able to continue that journey with the client, not only financially, is a great decision.
Yeah. They know you. Yeah, like they're already connected to you. They've bought Kristen.
Yeah.
And they know who she is. Like that's half the battle, isn't it, really?
It is. Well, it is. It's much easier to maintain a client than to get a new one. And if you've already got all of these beautiful wedding clients on board, that then come back after they start families, or vice versa. I've even had the same. I've had couples that have had babies before they've been married, and then I photographed them as they've been married after they've had children as well. So it's just lovely to get all of those beautiful love life circumstances captured in the business as well. So yeah, it's either celebrations of love or new love or whatever it is. But yeah, you're right, chasing love. That's exactly what I do. Yep.
And is that like a voyeuristic thing that it's just a big part of you? Like, are you sitting there watching like Love Island on the telly, or like is that something that's just you?
I do watch Love Island.
Oh no, don't.
Give me all the trashy television. Absolutely. No, but I think for me, I previously came out of a career where I used to be a lawyer before I was a photographer. And, you could not get anything further from what I do now than being in law and having to deal with people's problems all day, or trying to fix people's problems, or trying to prevent problems from happening. That's essentially the job of a lawyer. It's all about the issues and the problems, and you have to constantly be thinking about or anticipate what's going to be happening, or how this might be read, or how to stop this from happening, or something has happened and we need to fix this problem. So it's always about these, I suppose, negative life circumstances, really. You're either trying to prevent something awful from happening, or something awful's happened and you have to deal with it. Whereas now you're dealing with people's joy. So you're dealing with people getting married or having babies, and they're wanting to celebrate things in their lives rather than prevent awful things from happening or deal with awful things. So the mindset in who I am as a person is now completely different. And I suppose that's why I've so heavily focused on the type of work that I do, because it changes who I am as a person and forms who I am as a person.
That's great. I mean, I know why you've chosen photography, clearly, but where did it sneak into your psyche as, when you were a lawyer? Did you have a camera as a younger person, and how did that all happen for you?
Because once I went on maternity leave from law, I had 12 months at home with my brand new baby and was completely and utterly obsessed with her. And so became one of those mums with cameras that everyone hates, basically. So I picked up the camera and I taught myself how to take better photos of her. And then while she was sleeping, I would then go and study and learn better techniques of what I wanted to practice. And then she'd wake up and then I'd practice on her, and then she'd go back to sleep, and then I'd study again. And I think half of it was to keep my mind active, because I'd been in a profession that was so technically challenging, and my brain was constantly going at a mile a minute. And then I didn't really know what to do with myself when motherhood came around, because once they're kind
big
of
brakes on, isn't it? Like you just stop, you just, and it can be terribly boring.
There was part of me that really enjoyed that, and not having to be so stimulated mentally all the time. I actually really enjoyed that process. But there was also part of me that's like, okay, well, what can I do now? Like, what can I learn, and how can I get better at this, and how can I push myself to get better? So it was within that first year that that whole idea blossomed. But the turning point was getting to the end of that maternity leave period, and I had to make a decision of whether or not I would be going back. And so I had to decide if I would throw away, almost 10 years of my life that had been dedicated either through study or practice or in the profession of law. Would I kind of turn my back on that and do something that I had never studied, never done professionally, never had any experience in whatsoever, and do something that shock horror that I actually loved to do for a living, rather than feeling like it was something that I was supposed
obligated.
to do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what sort of law were you practicing?
Property, banking and finance. It just soul draining, Paul. Soul draining work.
Oh, well done. Well done. And you said a little earlier, you're one of the mums with the cameras that everyone hates. They actually run the world now.
No, I know, and I say that
They
with
don't.
tongue in cheek because I think some of the best businesses in family photography have come out of mums with cameras, which I think is fantastic. But I know that especially when I first started, 12 years or so ago now, that was not the mentality at all.
Leather pant wearing men.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, eh? And Porsches and yeah. I mean, and it's like when you look at what portrait love photography is, I mean, a photography of, it's not a guy in leather pants doing it. Like, from my feeling is what that brought to the industry, or what that was a cycling through the idea of why they're in there through to the business phase, to where it was about money and about making money. And yeah, there's a lot of them absolutely love their job and they love photography and they love the love aspect of it, but it became so much about money. And I think that then drove the industry to a point where people weren't booking photographers because they knew it was just it was an expensive thing. And so you would have been fighting that idea all your career in photography, that you're not one of these people that are here, you're just not ripping people off. You're actually providing an incredible service that people want. And you're re-engaged. You're lucky you're at the end of the industry where they're fairly fresh. They're out of school, they're getting married, they're in their sort of 20s and 30s, and they're ready for anything and open for anything. And when you're making beautiful work like you're doing, you connect with them. And then of course the baby stuff is so natural. So it's a different world right now than it was when you started.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're better for it. We really are. I'm so grateful for we wouldn't have a business if it wasn't for people like yourself and people doing it for that reason, because every single one of our previous clients are gone. Who had that focus. And I think most labs who had that focus as well, they don't exist anymore, because that's just, it doesn't exist anymore. It's strange. So tell me.
Metamorphosis that I think you guys have gone through as well, in terms of the branding of your business and the way that you're handling things, so different from what it was.
Yeah.
And that's, you kind of have to, don't you, in this industry? You have to evolve and grow and change. And I think that's the feeling that I'm almost feeling that now, almost in the industry. Like it's that kind of 10-year itch, so to speak, of how else can I shake things up and change it for my business as well.
It's happening now, isn't it? Like, I was going to ask you, what were things like before COVID? You'd come off Christmas where you've done that, you do your fabulous January photographs of your kids, which I just adore, and of course the puppy and everything like that sort of stuff. And were you powering into like a year of things growing and that kind of stuff before the brakes were put on?
My first quarter of 2020 has been one of my busiest quarters ever. Awesome. So I've been really, really fortunate that even though I've had to stop sessions due to COVID, I've just come off the back of a really, really busy quarter. So thankfully, this is now where I'm really grateful that I, one, run a successful business, two, that things have been really busy, but being able to maintain some sort of financial buffer, which I've always been super conservative of with my business, and running things always at a profit, meaning that when things like this happen, yes, it's pretty dire, but at the same time, you want to be able to prop yourself up with something until either the sessions start coming back in, or you can hopefully claim JobKeeper or something to kind of keep yourself afloat during these times. So pre-COVID, things were going really great. And then obviously it was just like someone pulling a chair out from underneath you. You just kind of sat back down and went, oh, okay, so just not going to be working right now. Okay, all right. But yeah, I think me being an introvert, which I've always been really public about, I am extremely introverted when it comes to anything really. I'm actually really enjoying the time at home, and the more I stay at home and the more I don't go out and kind of sit there and catch up on things or look at things in the business, or sit there watching Netflix for really, it doesn't really matter what it is. I'm not bothered by it. I'm actually really comforted by that process. So it's actually confirmed to me I'm probably even way more introverted than I thought I was, because I'm feeling really comfortable and happy with it. And the business things aside, taking the money completely out of the equation, I think it's just really good for my mental health too, just to have that little bit of a break that may not have been one that I planned, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It is what it is. All of us are in the same situation. We're all having to deal with it. And so all I can do is look at it as a little bit of a break for me mental health wise, and that's okay too. But that's also why we got a puppy as well. So I don't fill my days photographing this brand new puppy instead of newborns, because I can't photograph them.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was just looking at some of the pictures and I was looking at them and I was looking alongside your newborn pictures and going, okay, I see what you're doing here. And you picked a particularly good breed for the lying around this. They tucker themselves out, don't they?
They do. They wear themselves pretty thin, but no, it's lovely being able to have something else to concentrate on at home during this time as well. I call him my mental health plan, because that's exactly what he is.
An investment.
As much as I say that, you know, adding another member to your family is not necessarily a financially good decision, because it just increases your costs. It certainly was a very good decision mental health wise. So it just keeps us busy and keeps us happy and keeps us safe at home. And that's all, as I say, that we can really ask for. But I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying that time at home. And if it happens soon that things start to lift, which in Victoria is everything's still stage 3 until, gosh, I don't know, at least next week, then we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, I think there are people that are like attempting to do, you know, porch portraits, and people who've typically worked outside. I think yours would be particularly challenging because most of your portraiture is done inside, isn't it? Or you do some family, yeah.
And it's more so too because the stage 3 restrictions technically mean that clients are not permitted to be driving anywhere at the moment unless it's for essential services, and photography isn't an essential service. So they can't come to my studio for a portrait session because technically they would be in breach of stage 3 restrictions. So even though my business or photography businesses are not one of the prohibited businesses or ones that have to close, I can't operate if clients are not permitted to come and see me, if that's the way that my business runs. So technically, yes, I probably could, you know, do front porch sessions, or I hear people are doing that kind of stuff. But on the one hand, I'm like, you know what? It's actually okay. It's okay if I take a break. It's okay if I have a little breather for a while. I've still got 2 young kids who are also having to learn from home because their schools are closed. It's okay for me to be at home with them and to spend time with them. I financially got the business in a position where we're not going to be homeless within a month if I don't work. It's going to be hard, but that's why we kind of build in that buffer. So we just,
and that's why we pay tax, and that's why we live in Australia.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's pretty amazing. So you're super organized with your business structure and your systems, which, you know, famously, I mean, people go to workshops to listen to you talk about that, and it's a side of things a lot of photographers, professional photographers, working photographers, you know, struggle a lot with. Seems to grate against the kind of idea of an artistic self, but I think you kind of spoil that idea in that artistic, the stuff is gorgeous, and yet you've got the systems in place working too. Was that just something that is how Kristen works, and it's not something you had to fight with?
Never had to fight it. In fact, I think that's why I've always said I never regretted coming from law before I was a photographer for that very reason. I have been trained very, very well in how to be organised and how to spot things and how to structure certain things in a way that doesn't cause confusion, or to make things as simple as possible and to keep it very simple, because I need to be efficient. So taking those skills and then applying them to my business has meant that I think that one of the main reasons why the business has thrived the way that it has, over and above obviously anyone being able to take a good photo, is having systems in place that allow you to do that in an efficient and profitable way. But that's me. I am very particular about the way that things are done. You can ask anyone. But it's meant that, I'm able to run things in a way that makes sense to me and that's efficient, and it makes the whole business run really smoothly, even though technically I just run my business as a sole trader, but I still am able to do that with a little bit of help, but only one day a week. I have an admin person come in one day a week.
And you do shoot with assistants as well, don't you? You have people on weddings?
I do, yes. Yeah. Yep. So at weddings, I always have an assistant, not a second shooter. I rarely shoot with a second shooter, again, because for me, it's just more images that I then have to process. Yeah. So I've become quite adept at being able to kind of anticipate things in different angles and then shooting them accordingly. The only time I ever really have a second shooter is if I physically can't be in two places at once and the client requires it, or if they're specifically requested it simply due to a time factor. But it's pretty rare for me to have a second shooter at a wedding. But I'll always have an assistant, because then that means I can focus on the shooting part of it 100%. And because I like the company. I like the fact that I've got someone with me on the day.
Somebody's got your back.
Exactly, yeah. Particularly in weddings where it's not your environment and you're walking into some unknown sometimes, and just having someone there to kind of talk through things and bounce some ideas off is actually a really nice thing. And it's not even that the person that's with me is a photographer. Often they're not. But it's just nice to have someone there to be able to assist during that time.
So is it someone that you like to use? I mean, I'm gathering it's not the same person, using different people. And you're saying some are experienced with photography and some aren't.
Yes, so I've got probably about 4 or 5 different people that I call on at any one time. I've had other wedding photographers assist me before, but as they get busy in their own businesses, then obviously their time commitment with me is less and less, which is completely understandable. So the people that I have more often are friends of mine that come out with me on the weekends. They do their own thing during the week and they love weddings. They're not photographers, but they love being in it. And personality-wise, they fit beautifully with the profile of my business. So it just means that when they come in, they can be all over everything they need to do in terms of either if they're minding my gear or they're helping brides or bridesmaids with things or running things off for the florist or whatever it is that needs doing that day. They're just the second pair of hands for anyone on the day, but they love it. So they help me on the day, and we're able to bounce ideas off one another and just have a chat about things on the day. And it just, helps you just enjoy the day a little bit better. It takes that stress off things, knowing that there's always someone there.
Yeah, that's really smart. I mean, especially with gear and being professional, you need lots of backup gear and all that sort of stuff. So for you to be comfortable.
Yeah, so I've got 2 or 3 of everything with me at all times, so that I don't have to run back to the car or lug everything around on my back as I'm shooting. So I can just have the gear with me that I'm using at that time, and then my assistant has everything else.
Yeah. So tell me, you've got a really strong aesthetic and a very strong, simple idea. What inspires you? Where do you get your ideas from? Do you change your style much, or you just gently move through it? Or
I feel like I've been doing the same thing for about 5 to 8 years now. Right. I really do, and I even though I try and take different images, I feel like the feeling of those images hasn't really changed in quite some time. But I'm okay with that. I was actually having a discussion with a friend about that the other day, and I was saying that I know that there are some photographers out there that feel like they need to constantly do something different at every session. They need that creative and mental stimulation from either their wedding or their session or their portrait or whatever it is that they're shooting. They need to pull something new out of a hat every time. And I said, I'm actually the opposite. I'm quite okay with producing work that I know they want and that will sell, because I still love it. I still find joy in it. I'm not doing it because it's mechanical or anything like that. If I did, I wouldn't be doing this. I can tell you right now. But I don't feel the need for every single thing that I do to be new and different and amazing, because often you only need 1 or 2 images from the session that might speak a little bit differently to you. But clients have booked you for a particular reason because you have a particular style and you have a particular feel and look. So I'm actually okay with 90% of it still having that look and feel. And if you pull out 1 or 2 wow images for yourself during the session, that's enough for me. It absolutely is enough for me because I
think
know
it's reality too, though.
Absolutely.
I don't think, like, the people who feel that there's more to it than, like, that it's possible to do more than that, I don't know if you could actually survive as a professional in that way.
This is the conversation that we were having because I think they were struggling with business and they were thinking that they had to constantly be new and find these wow things and that was their way of kind of marking their territory in their business. And I said, well, that's all fine and well, but who are you impressing? Like, are you impressing the other photographers who need to see these new and wow and amazing things, or are you trying to impress the people that are actually going to be paying your bills who probably think that any image that you produce is wow and amazing because you've got the necessary skills and aesthetic to have been able to pull their interest from the beginning. And I think we don't value that enough, that if clients have at least reached out to contact you in the beginning, whether it be from seeing your work or some sort of marketing thing that you've been doing, there's been something in your work that's called them to reach out to you. And so finding out what that might be, it is half the battle already done, because if you know what it is that they're looking for, then you give them that and they're going to be happy.
That's right.
And if you say
that
I'm looking for something wow and amazing and something you've never done before, then great, that's the brief. Then you go for gold with that. But if they're like, oh, I know I like these particular things in your work and this is what I really enjoy and I love this XYZ, insert the word here, that's what it is that they've seen in your work, and that's what you should be giving them.
And they're not photographers, they're civilians, and they're understanding, like, they've come to you from what you've shown people, whether it be through Instagram, and that's what they're after. And I suppose once you've got that sorted, what it leaves you with is this wonderful time to spend with them to actually switch that side of it on, which a lot of photographers miss because they're too busy fiddling around with trying to produce something different. They're missing the relationship.
Exactly. And I think that that's the important key thing in enjoying sessions too, because if I know what I'm shooting for, if I know if I've got a brief from a client to say, you know, I really love these particular images from a session. So for example, if I've got a newborn client that's booked in and says, oh, we really love those really gorgeous black and white close-ups that you do of your newborns, then you know what I'm going to be shooting a lot of during that session, because I want them to have these amazing images because they want them. So if I don't shoot them, I'm just doing myself a disservice of actually making a great sale. I want them to love their images. And I'm in the business of serving people. I may be a photographer, but I am a service provider. And so if I can give them that service and listen to them and say, okay, you told me that this is what you want, so this is what I'm going to come and give to you. Obviously pepper in a few other things and keep it in the style that you shoot in. But you're going to have a happy client that way because you've given them exactly what they've asked for. Even if they haven't specified it as such, you can always get that out of a client through the questions that you ask them as to what they're actually wanting.
Yeah. So tell me, how does an introvert survive being a wedding photographer? Look, it's all about people, you know, it's about... It
is, but I think a lot of it is quite voyeuristic. So you're kind of standing on the outside doing a lot of kind of doco style stuff for a lot of the day. The family stuff, because my couple I always meet with at least twice before the wedding. So I've gotten to know them as kind of my people. So dealing with people on the day is actually not an issue. It's the downtime straight after the wedding. Once I'm done off a wedding, it's out of my mind and I need to put it out of my mind for a while because I need to kind of get that energy back after the wedding. On the wedding day, I'm 100% fine. It's just that it drains so much of me on the wedding day that I am not a double-header, triple-header type of wedding photographer. Once I've done my one wedding that week, that is my one wedding and I do not shoot another one. Obviously, that may change due to the whole COVID thing. I may have to double up on dates over the weekends just to be able to fit people in that I've had to cancel. But the wedding day itself is okay. I've usually formed enough of a connection with my clients and the people around them to be able to get through that. But it's the after effects that I'm like, okay, yep, just not thinking about this now, and I'm going to put that aside, just have some R&R and then get back into it again.
Yeah, like you get so much out of your kids and being at home, and like I will hang up on this call and I'll be flying around the room. Really, like I just love talking to you and I like talking to people and I like this chat thing. And I know when Kate does that, because Kate's an introvert as well.
Yeah.
She's like, she don't want to talk to anybody after a conversation. She just yeah, she just picks up the phone and you just don't see anything happen. Or she'll talk to Frankie, our puppy, our new puppy.
Yeah.
So she'll talk to Frankie and I kind of as a the opposite as an extrovert, I feel like I'm being left out. What's going on here? I'm not that. But it's just the way people function. And I think at the baseline of that's all it's about. Where you draw your energy from, and you obviously wouldn't be doing what you're doing to this level if you couldn't cope with a wedding day. You're obviously spot on with it.
No, absolutely. And I think introversion doesn't necessarily come from being shy. You can have many introverts that are seemingly extroverted, Kate being a perfect example. You would never, upon speaking to Kate, automatically assume that she would be an introvert at all. Yeah. But if you find that kind of stimulates you to the point where you just need some time out afterwards, then you're probably going to be an introvert. So for me, I can deal with sessions with people I've never met. I can deal with big weddings with 400 people. That part about it doesn't stress me out in the slightest. It's just that I absolutely need to recharge my batteries after those events, even after a session. The session may only go for 2 hours, for example, for a portrait session. Usually finishes up about lunchtime. But when that hits, I sit on the couch, I will put the TV on. I will just have half an hour to myself just to think about nothing, make myself some lunch, something like that, and then, start back into emails or return some phone calls or things like that, because I just need that time to stop. Yeah. Otherwise, I find for the rest of the day I'm erratic.
So, but you're also like really challenged with kids at their age they are at and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I mean, that takes a fair chunk of energy out. It's just totally impossible. I don't know why I'm even asking it, but if you throw yourself forward when your kids are like, Mum, I just need to hang out with someone else. I'm sorry, love. And, like they're all doing, my kids are doing right now. Yeah. And then you go, okay, what's next? And like photographically, is there anything that you're dying to shoot or a thing that Kristen wants to do photographically?
I did a little a shoot with my daughter's friends at the end of last year. She just finished up in primary school at the end of last year. And I did a beautiful little kind of Vanity Fair-esque inspired shoot with her and her 6 other friends. There were 7 of them in the shoot. And then I shot them individually, and it was actually really, really lovely photographing these 11, 12-year-olds because, one, I hardly ever shoot that age by themselves because normally when people are coming into me for baby and newborn sessions, the siblings are generally about 2 to maybe 8 years old for the eldest of siblings, never usually into kind of grade 6 kind of category. It's super rare for me to get that age to come in. They took direction really well, which was fantastic. It was just wonderful.
Were they being supervised? Were their parents there?
No, because I know all of the parents, so it was all of just the kids themselves.
Perfect.
Because it took away all of the, like mum's in the background watching, so I have to be on my best behaviour, and all of that was taken out of the equation. But they're also not yet at an age where they're super self-conscious about themselves, which I find teenagers tend to start to develop as they get a bit older. And a bit more aware of their social status within the friendship group and all of that sort of stuff. So they're at that really beautiful age where they take direction really well, they listen really well, but they're not yet self-conscious. So it's actually a really gorgeous age to photograph. And to be honest, I'd like to do more of it. I don't know, like if this had been my first quarter of January and March, I would have said I don't have time to be able to look at that. But now that I've had some time to myself now. I'm kind of like, oh, might be nice to do something like that. Because it also would mean that in a social distancing sense, there's no contact that needs to be made. So if things do start to open up and you could have someone in the studio, it's quite easy to maintain a couple of meters distance and still being able to photograph them while still giving them direction, which you clearly cannot do with a newborn or a baby.
Yeah, totally.
Direction to them. You have to kind of, baby sessions are a little bit easier because I can still distance myself from the baby and have the parent actually put them somewhere or pick them up or do anything like that without having to have any contact. But obviously that's impossible with newborn sessions when you're not shooting on a purely lifestyle type of session.
Yeah, I was thinking when you're saying your interest, DJ, DJ Payne, who we used to do the podcast together, he always wanted to photograph 7-year-old kids. He thought there was an age right there where they're just getting an understanding of who they are, and he wanted to do that lifestyle stuff where, but he wanted to do it outside and in different locations where they might feel that they're at home, whether it be a skate park thing or whatever it is, and it is interesting watching kids go through these different stages, and I'm sure it would be a lot of fun, and if bringing your aesthetic to that sort of thing, it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was just more of a challenge to do something that's so different from what I'm doing now, because it requires a completely different skill set. They're not adults, but they're not babies, but they kind of have a little element of both, as I say. So they don't have that self-conscious nature that comes with teens and grown women at the same time usually. But they obviously have enough ability to take direction. So if I say to them, okay, if you can stand over there or put your head towards the light or turn your body in this direction, they listen, and it's amazing. You're not having to kind of play with toddlers or kind of fake them into getting what you want them to do without them realizing, which is all what toddlers want to do. It's all about playing and being cheeky and all of that sort of stuff, which is great, but it takes a lot of energy. So this was just a lot more quiet and still and calm and beautiful, and there was something really lovely about that in the process. So a good change from weddings, a good change from babies, but who knows? It was lovely to do on a personal note. So whether or not I do that professionally, I can't say, but it was lovely to do.
It's nice to have the time to think about things like this, isn't it? In the headspace to go, okay, I could possibly, and you have to think, I until there's a reliable vaccine, I think we're going to need to be thinking along these lines. And I've seen some birth photography going ahead still, which is amazing how they can, sort that out. But I suppose it's a particularly difficult situation regardless. They're always struggling with hospitals. But newborns is going to be one of those things that's just has suffered from it. Most weddings have been postponed though, that I understand. You've had all people say to you, we're going in October or something like that, have you?
Yeah, my 2 ones that I was just about to have in April, we're in May now, gosh, it's getting away from me. I had 2 final weddings in April. One has postponed to November, one has postponed to January. I strongly feel like the rest of this year is probably still going to be postponed, which is unfortunate because the end of this year is quite a busy wedding season for me. Which again, can't do anything about it. It is what it is. I'll either have people postpone indefinitely or obviously change up their arrangements just depending on what it is that they're actually wanting to get out of their wedding day. I've had a few people float the idea of just having something a little bit more smaller and more intimate, which would be lovely. I mean, I really love those weddings anyway, and I think it's only when you're in the industry and you see what happens at weddings that sometimes you really appreciate those smaller weddings. But when it's your own wedding and you haven't done it before, obviously you don't want to have to compromise on that, which I completely understand. So we're just working as much as we can together to try and give them something that they really want and obviously provide something that fits in with the dates that are available. But we're all playing this waiting game, aren't we?
I know.
We don't know what's happening, and we just have to be as understanding as we can of each other and be kind, because it's all we've got.
Well, exactly. Kindness is it. Now, you've done a bit of mentoring in the past. Is that something that's still happening a little bit through this, or is there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've got a few people that I'm doing these one-on-one type Skype calls with.
Yep.
Obviously, it's not possible to do it more from a shooting perspective because I can't show it from a perspective where I've got clients coming into the studio because that's not permitted. But we're doing lots of portfolio reviews or business discussions or just management of business and things like that, which is always important to talk about. But I think especially now when that's the main thing that people can be concentrating on, because that's the part that I feel people always put to the side. It's always in the, when I have time, then I'll do X, Y, Z. People will always spend time on learning or upskilling their shooting skills a lot before they'll spend the time and money on their business or their organisational part of their business.
Yeah, so the mentoring side of things, I personally would think that you're best known for that, helping people through that structure. So if you're a young photographer looking at, or someone transitioning to the industry, someone fresh to the industry, what would be just, one bit of advice you'd throw out to them to start with?
Do you mean currently in this time now?
Well, there's people who were toying with the idea, and everyone, like, yes, we've been put on hold, but those ideas wouldn't have left people's minds, whether they started photography last year or whether they've been thinking about transitioning to a career where they basically control their own time frames and that. Yeah, this is really hard now. I mean, if it was me, I would be talking to people about, gallery systems, web-based gallery systems for sales, because we've not seen that really fall off much. Web gallery ordering has been stellar. In fact, I can't believe the performance of it. I think there's a hole for us as a lab coming, but what else would, like, people are going to think about systems, think about business, think about superannuation. Like, where would you encourage people to start off thinking if they're fresh to the industry?
Well, they need to structure their business in such a way that, and it's ironic, it hasn't changed, post-COVID, I suppose, but they need to structure their business in such a way that it's profitable and that they have a buffer in case things start to lull. So with the systems that I have in place now, even with the restrictions easing on ordering, for example, I used to do my appointments in person. So after a session would take place, I would have an ordering appointment with clients thereafter. Being able to switch that online and doing a face-to-face has been pretty seamless all up, because I'm still doing the exact same process that I would do with clients prior to having to not see them in person. So it's simply a matter of getting to a point where we've been able to shift the focus to having online appointments and educating and guiding clients through that process. I've never once said to clients, for example, that this is a lesser way of doing it, because I don't want them to feel like their experience through the end of the process is going to be any different than if they came to see me in person. Now, I may think differently, because obviously having them in the studio and being able to touch and feel the products is a very different part of the process. However, I think the actual process of guiding clients and walking them through that and educating them in that process means that they don't feel as though they're having any less of an amazing experience with you than what they would have been getting prior to it. So one big focus is on saying, if you have a business that you can sustain through all of the ebbs and flows of whatever may come your way, and we've been all thrown a pretty heavy curveball. Like, when you say for a rainy day, this is the rainy day that we're talking about. This is it. It doesn't really get much worse than this when it comes to everyone being all affected at the same time. But being able to set yourself up in such a way that you can move and shift and grow with the challenges and changes that are happening, so you're not stuck rigidly in one position, which means that if you're getting pushed or pulled in one direction, it doesn't completely break in front of you. And I think, unfortunately, that's happened for some people that may not have either structured their businesses in such a way that allows for a little bit of movement when their income does decrease or stop entirely, because I know there are some businesses that just will not recover from this. Either they've been undercharging themselves, or they've been living fairly week to week, which means that when it gets to the point where there's a crunch on the income coming in, they don't know how to recover from it. So I think in the back of my mind now, that's my biggest thing is, one, you have to structure your business in such a way that allows you to move and change with the times, because it may not be this challenge, it may be a completely different challenge that comes your way, or there may be something else that happens, and you need to constantly be aware and willing to take on those challenges that come before you. And if you can also then marry that with a pricing structure and a business that's successful and that maintains that profit, it means that when you do have to make those sudden left and right turns, that your whole business doesn't fall over in the meantime.
Yeah, like it's a big ask for any business to think that they could perhaps do 6 months with nothing. I don't, it's just so unusual. I don't know any kind of nest egg is going to really help too much. But it's, again, grateful for the government to providing what it is at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you feel confident about the industry over the last few years, about the direction of it and what new people into the industry? You mentioned pricing and what people, I don't know if anything's actually changed. There are always people who didn't know what to do with pricing and charging, Oh,
absolutely. And I don't think that will ever change, because I think it will always come down to, a confidence factor as well, that if people feel like they shouldn't be charging as much as someone else because they're either new to the industry, or they feel like they don't have enough experience, or they want to be able to serve clients that may not necessarily have the budget, that will always be a thing. It will be a thing in our industry. It will be a thing in anyone's industry. That's not unique to photography at all. So I don't think that's a new thing now, but my hesitation has always been because of the circumstances that we unfortunately face ourselves now, that if something happens in their life or in their business, that means that they have to suddenly change things, will they be able to get themselves through that? And often when you're working with a lower profit business model, that's when you start to run into some trouble when it comes to that. So it's about finding ways that you can make those systems work for you and your business, finding where you can make good business decisions that work for you in the way that you run your business, that work for your clients, and that are sustainable for the future. Because at the end of the day, if we've all chosen to do this as a profession and we've all chosen to be in business, then we are in business. So we can't hide from that and then say, but I don't really want to charge too much, or I don't really want to do X, Y, Z, because that's what we're all in business for. We're all in business to make money. Otherwise, we'd be doing this for free, and it wouldn't be a business. It would be a hobby.
Yeah. There is a lot of people that fall into that it's a bit of a trap, and I think it's people wanting to be and run the business with the artist model,
Of course.
and not to think so much about that. And there's a scale. It's a long sliding scale as to people's effectiveness and how they work on that. But look, hey, just last question before we say goodbye, because I've held you up and had your time. It's been beautiful. But I do want to ask, because as photographically, your work is so, singular and simple and elegant. You're obviously not bringing a lot of equipment to a situation, like thinking about your portrait. Are you a one light person with your portrait?
I'm a natural light person. So
I'm a light person.
Yeah. Yep. I work from portraits, and weddings, apart from when it gets dark in receptions and I have to pull the flash out. Yeah. I don't use any other artificial lighting. It's all natural light. Yeah.
So you've got obviously a lovely place in your house, in your studio, that's got a lovely big window facing.
It's facing northeast. It's in a weird position, but when we purchased the house, gosh, it would have been about 7 years ago now. It was the only one that I could find that had a room that was big enough to be able to convert into a studio, and that had a window that went to the floor. All of the others had these weird, windows that were at the top of the ceiling, or they were odd shapes, or they kind of stopped at your hip or something like that. And they didn't work for newborns who would be on the floor. If you're an adult and you can stand next to a window, completely different situation. But when you've got a newborn who is at floor level or just above, you need the light to be coming in fairly low to the ground to be able to reach them if you're not shooting with artificial light. So for me, that was the one thing that I was looking at. And then I just basically popped some diffusers up on the window and made do with what I had. So I always say you just got to work with what you have. And it didn't matter to me that the window wasn't facing the right direction or anything like that. I just had to make it work in the best way possible. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, and of course, once you've learnt and understood that and worked with it, you can build everything else around.
100%, absolutely. But yeah, people often ask me, what kind of lights do you work with? And I always say, whatever the sun's doing that day is the light that I'm working with. I've got enough diffusion on the window so that even if it's a super bright sunny day, I can still control it. And in the same way, if it's one of those dark days that you can't see inside and you have to turn the lights on, then all of the diffusion comes off. And then I shoot with a higher ISO, but I've never had to go above, I think, like 1250 or something ISO in the studio on a super, super dark day. You just make do with what you've got and you try and use it to the best of your ability.
Oh, that elegance and simplicity is so obvious with the work. I can see that it comes from a place of not trying to crowd your brain with 1,000 ideas and being very clear about your thinking and your systems and that sort of stuff.
It is. It's just, I want this quiet introspection that comes through with the newborns that come into the studio. The whole studio has that vibe when they come in. I want it to be calming. I want it to be really beautiful and minimalist. And I also want that then reflected in the images that they get. It's just quiet beauty that they get, because that's the whole vibe of the session as well. I just want it to be all about the baby. I don't necessarily want to overcomplicate it during the session. And there are so many photographers out there who are great friends of mine who do amazing work with props or textures that they'll bring in or backdrops or amazing things that they do with that. But it's just not me. It's just, and I would never have clients that come to me that would want that. Otherwise, they would be sorely disappointed if they did. But in the same vein, there are clients out there who really want that, and so they won't book me either. But I think that's the beauty of having a style and being able to say, okay, well, this is the kind of work that I do, but within that style, you then have things that clients will pinpoint. And I think that goes back to our initial discussion about when clients speak to you about your work, they'll always find different elements, things that sometimes you don't even realize that you were putting out there, that they'll find in there and say, we really like this about your work. And you're like, I never would have thought that. But if that's what you're seeing in it, then that's a really good thing, because it just gives me a new thing to think about.
Yeah, and everything you do with, visually with your marketing talks about that style, and you're not going to get people bothering you, I think, that are looking for things other than that. I mean, they probably will ask, but they're not going to book you if they've got to that point of contacting you after reading everything and seeing everything.
Yeah, and I could probably name on one hand the number of times in the last 5 years that someone has asked if they could have a particular shot with something, but it's usually a sentimental item. So it might be a blanket that someone's knitted, or it might be a toy that someone's bought them, or something like that. And my answer is always yes. I will never, ever, ever say, no, I'm sorry, I don't shoot that style, so therefore I'm not going to do it. I would never. Like, it's their session. I said a million times, I'm a service provider and I don't have an ego so big that I would say no, because it's their session and I will happily do it. Will it form part of my giant marketing piece? No, it probably won't, because it's not necessarily the style that I would promote of my own work. But I want to keep the client happy, so I will absolutely take that photo for them of whatever it is that they request, and that will be the end of it, and they'll love it, and we'll go from there. But I think it's just about having a style that meets with whatever it is that you want to put out there in the universe, and running with that, because you'll always find clients that will genuinely love that and find bits of that in what they're after with your work.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on having such clarity. I mean, if there's one thing, and I mentioned this to Joel from Barefoot and Bearded, the clarity of what he is and what he does is number one. And, and you've got it too. And that clarity is something I think most of us are lacking a bit. And I think it's spending some time trying to work out yourself and how that works is probably one of the best investments you can have in yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree.
Well, thank you so much for this hour, pretty much.
Thank you, Paul.
It's been absolutely lovely. And I wish you all the health and happiness going forward, and that you get some restrictions are lifted enough to. I'd love to see this Vanity Fair style child stuff. I think you could have a lot of fun with the sophisticated.
It was a bit fun.
And that's what, you need that. We need that. We need to be pushing ourselves a little bit in that direction. I think kids, they at that age, they see this, they're visual consumers are seeing this stuff, and I think they want to reflect it on themselves, and it will be an awesome set of body of work if you can get around to that. So good luck with it, huh?
Thank you. It was lovely to chat with you, Paul. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. And I don't know when we'll see each other next. Maybe I don't know. AIPP one day, maybe.
One day, maybe. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Kristen.
No worries.
So depending on how the sound works out.
Oh, yeah. So this could be for video only people.
Yeah.
But Kristen bought did you see the puppies?
The puppy is so
So
divine.
you might be listening to this and go, what is all that crazy talk? And you wouldn't have seen the dogs. So you might want to hop over to the YouTube or Vimeo version of the show and look at the dogs, because Kristen brought her puppy to the camera.
And
we put our Frank to the puppy to the camera, and they had a puppy moment. They didn't really know they were looking at anything.
Hey, look. Frank is not very smart. That was a very long silence. I love my dog, but he's not particularly intelligent. But I believe that there's a correlation between their ability to unconditionally adore you and their intelligence. Because if they're smart, like Louis is much smarter, but he doesn't give two fucks about us. Like if we died tomorrow, he'd be like, Evs, next.
I don't know.
Frank loves us because he's so dumb.
I don't know. I think he's very sweet. And Kristen's dog was absolutely gorgeous. It was
so fluffy.
A miniature poodle, huh?
And she's taking photos of. Oh no, toy.
Yeah, toy poodle.
Toy
poodle.
But more miniature size.
I think it's grown up a bit.
It's a chunkin'
I think
baby.
they didn't expect it quite to be that big. But it is a gorgeous little puppy.
It's very
so
sweet.
the puppy's had a meet. So if you, it might make it on the audio, but it might not make any sense.
Yeah, it depends on how cuckoo it is once I get in there and look at it.
Edit it down, yeah. So
because I do all the editing of this.
She does. She's
horror
the
show. So when there's a mistake, like there was a few weeks ago,
forgot to cut the end.
I forgot to cut the end off. That was all me, just rushing. Rushing here, rushing there.
That's
right,
it.
moment of colour.
Moment of
Look
colour.
at me, hurrying you up, putting you on the time frame.
Your moment of colour this week is purple. Purple. So again, thanks to Cassia St. Clair for this fabulous book, The Secret Lives of Colour. Purple is interesting, right? Let me describe.
It's a sex colour, isn't it?
I thought it was the colour of the sexually frustrated.
Yeah, that's what I always heard in the 90s because I'm so old.
I don't know. It's also the colour of blue rinse, which is the colour that old ladies would dye their hair.
Hey, I'm going to be one of those.
You're not dyeing your hair. So tell me,
Green.
you were going to tell me something about blue rinse.
No, it's the blue rinse is about when you have grey hair, which is I am one of the many women now who is refusing to dye their hair anymore. And so I'm going grey naturally and I'm really happy about it. And my hair eventually will be white and I cannot wait. And when it's white or when it's very grey, like a lot of there's not much colour left, natural things in the environment, cigarette smoke, that sort of crap, can tinge your hair a bit sort of yellowy.
Okay.
And so nobody wants that. So what you do is you put a purple rinse through and it counters.
Why do you put a purple?
Because it counters the yellow and you come back with lovely silvery blue again.
I've never seen a purple rinse that doesn't look like your purple.
It's because they go a bit too heavy and they just want to get it in there and get it lasting for a few washes.
So it was all the sitting around the bingo hall
Yes, because
smoking.
they're all smoking like trains. Your mother, that whole thing.
Yes. Anyway, So let's have a look at the Tyrian purple, which is a particular kind of
Tyrion,
purple.
not as in Tyrion from Game of Thrones.
Well, I don't know if they borrowed the name from it. So Pliny the Elder, you know Pliny the Elder?
Pliny the Elder.
He's
How the fuck do I know
one of the
Pliny
great
the
writers
Elder?
from ancient lands.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my hippy dippy school did a lot
So
of
he said
ancient.
Tyrian purple is ideally the colour of clotted blood.
Oh, fuck me.
That's all.
Really?
So if you were to crack open the shell of this spiky Murex little sea creature, another sea creature, It's a carnivorous gastropod. So it eats meat, right?
Okay, gastropod.
You would see a pale hypobrachial gland or bloom transecting its body. And if this was squeezed...
Oh, what are these people doing? Leave the poor animal alone.
A single drop of clear liquid smelling of garlic would be released. Within moments, the sunlight would turn the liquid first pale yellow, then sea green, and then blue, and finally a dark purple red. The best colour so deep it was tinged with blackness, it obtained by mixing the fluids from both kinds of shellfish. Getting the colour to adhere to permanent cloth involved a long and foul-smelling process. So normally...
And there's those peas. There's a pea
that
you can make a pea tea out of this pea.
Not a pea as in
It's a flour.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And you put it in,
Like
and depending on
desert.
no, not like that, but different.
But it's a pea.
Well, yeah, okay, whatever. But you dip it into your tea, and you get this like blue tea, and depending on how acidic your water is, it goes purple.
We're getting to that. So anyway, to turn it into a wash fast dye. So the dye, you could put this little shellfish squeezy bit drop, right? But to make it permanent, you had to add it to a vat of stale urine. There's always we involved in this.
Always we.
For the ammonia, and allowed to ferment for 10 days before the cloth was added. Some accounts recommended treating the cloth on 1 or 2 separate baths. So how disgusting is that? And interestingly enough, to make 30 grams or about an ounce of this, it takes 250,000 drops. So it's 250,000 of these little sea creatures that you squeeze. How terrible is that?
I do not want that job.
So
sea creature squeezing job.
So orchel, here's another purple colour. Orchel. I think that's pronounced right. Would you say that's orchel?
Yeah.
Orchil, man.
Oh, God.
We mentioned a dye a colour that changed reacted to acidity or alkalinity. That's the litmus test. So it was taken from a moss, and if you put it with certain,
I'm not yawning.
was that a yawn? Okay, let's move on.
No, hang on.
But this
Did you
is
just make the ultimate dad joke? Did you just say let's move on?
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's flip over.
Oh, we're doing purple.
Let's move on to mauve. Let's move on to mauve. Now I've got mauve because Cassia's got a nice bit about mauve.
Let's move on.
Right, mauve was first a colour that was noted as a colouring that came from quinine, which was, of course, a part of malaria.
Thing.
Quinine, which is tonic water, which is what we do to treat malaria.
Gin and tonic, kids. You want to buy Paul a present, get him gin.
So mauve was really, really fantastic. Oscar Wilde, though, would say, never trust a woman who wears mauve.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Really?
It means they have a history. I don't know what that
means. Oh, because she's a slut. Why would he give a shit?
Well, that was in the portrait of Dorian Gray. Yeah. Oscar Wilde's interesting.
Yeah, sure.
We've got a mauve car, the Honda Jazz.
The Honda Jazz. Oh, yeah. The Honda Jazz is bloody purple orange car.
That's right. And the last thing we're going to mention is under...
Magenta.
Magenta is classed as a purple.
Yes.
Would you think that is the case?
Yeah.
I was thinking...
It's got more blue in it.
It's probably because we're used to dealing with a very light magenta, a light version of it that we actually recognise.
But it's not a red.
It's not a red, and it's certainly not blue magenta, but it is a pinky blue. It's a pinky colour. I would think...
If there's blue in the red, it's purple.
That's right. And technically, and I'm sure Cassie's done more understanding than us.
Like she's the expert, dude. She's got a book. What have you got? Have you got a book?
No, I don't have a book. But I have a lot of magenta. Magenta is something that's in my head all the time because it is opposite to...
Green.
Thank you. Well done. So when you're colour correcting, if you see something that's green, what do you add?
Magenta.
You add magenta. If you see something that's a bit too pinky, like a baby, you're here talking baby photography with Kristen.
They're all bloody gementary.
So what do you do to get rid of the pinky reds of the baby?
Green, and then you make the grey background green and the photographer gets pissed off.
It's very challenging, doesn't it? So often with babies, what we need to do, because here we are throwing a bit of lab technique in here, we would go into hue and saturation into the red channel and change it from being... to more of a yellow red, which is a bit more of a green effect and pulls the magenta out and stops the ruddiness of babies.
Yeah.
So that's your moment
Ruddy babies.
That's your moment of colour. Ruddy babies.
Wow.
Anything else you want to talk about?
So this week.
Oh, no.
This is the week.
What is the week?
We are launching Rose again with an update that's changing all the album settings and how you do albums and how you do a whole lot of other crap. And we've done all these bloody videos which you can't see us on because the stupid light didn't work. But now we've got our gorgeous.
No, you've got the videos though. They will see you and they'll see you slowly dimming. That'll be fun to scrub forward. And see you guys
really
getting the dung.
We just look worse and worse as the video goes through. So we're launching a bunch of videos, but I think I'll probably send out an email just telling everybody. And I'm going to do like a little list of things that have changed and updated and stuff. But it means you can now order albums, more than one album per order, without any dysfunction happening.
Yes, because it's been broken since we've been...
Don't talk about it.
I don't know. Anyway.
It's just too awful.
Thank you so much for listening, watching, whatever you're doing, and we wish you...
And now listen, a request.
Okay.
I want anyone who's listening to put this thing onto speaker. If you've got your headphones on, great.
You can't put it on speaker because kids can hear your bad language.
I will not swear for the next 35 seconds. I want you to go to your computer.
Can you do it 35 seconds?
And go to Apple Podcasts because we know you're not listening on the Apple Podcasts app because it's crap and you're probably using, what are you using?
Overcast.
You didn't switch your friggin' laptop off and making the boom, you've got an email. Okay, so I want you to go to Apple Podcasts and I want you to write a review. And here's the review you write.
Can't you review in other places like on Spotify or...
Yeah, sure, but the get more stuff, you have to do it on Apple Podcasts.
What do you mean the
put it featured and people find out about it.
But doesn't Overcast do a featured podcast as well as Apple and Spotify do featured podcasts?
I don't know how that works.
So what we'd like you to do is go to every single way you listen, the way you listen to the podcast.
But why do we want that? What do we do? We're doing this because we want to talk to our clients, which, we want more clients, but we don't need more free listeners to our free show. We want people to buy some stuff.
No.
So here, maybe what we do.
No, we don't.
Maybe what we do is we say, if you're listening to the podcast, just chuck another 10.8 in your order. If everybody chucked one more 10.8 in your order, our lives would be substantially less painful.
But look, frankly, we also want the guests that are coming on our podcast to get a bit more of an audience as well because we're choosing people.
You're the one
who's
reasonable and caring and actually cares about like the community, and I'm just like, give me more money.
Big part of the business's marketing over the last 20, 30 years has been providing a platform for our clients to help them step up and take the next level
That's
up
why we
the
had
ladder.
The gallery space.
Yeah, that's right. And so the podcast is another thing for that.
And you're the community builder. See, I'm the hermit. Just sits in a room going, oh my God, I have to speak to people. And then I speak to people and I hide again. But you are the community builder because you care.
You know, Kristen's an introvert as well.
Yeah, I know.
She runs a fabulous business for being someone who doesn't.
See, Kristen did you hear the beautiful John Roderick talking about introverts? You put a bunch of introverts in a room. So his theory is, if you put like 10 introverts into a room, the least introverted of them will rise to the top and become extroverted.
Okay.
Because the tension of the introversion, the tension of the everybody just quietly sitting looking at their phones is too much for the borderline, like not borderline extroverted, but the ones that are least extroverted in the crowd,
least
right?
introverted.
So like when we went to that terrible party that we once went to, there was all engineers that were so introverted they spoke not at all. And
someone actually was reading a novel.
Oh my God. And I turned into this crazy extrovert and was running around the room going, "So, what do you think of this? And so, what do you..." Oh, it was just the worst night of my life because I felt like I had to like make the conversation for people. And so with Kristen and I, she is a lot more introverted than I am. But she's also, I think I'm probably as introverted as her, but I have this driving need to fake my extroversion, like to be crazy girl, because I feel like if I don't, like that's why all my friends are extroverts, because I hang out with them and they're going off their trees and I can just sit in the corner and be quiet.
Yeah. And
it's lovely. That's why I married you. So we go to a fucking art exhibition and I just sit in the corner hoping not to die. Or hoping to die, and you roam around the room. You're all, "Oh my God, Sally, how you doing? Where's Frank?" Blah blah blah. And I'm just sitting there going, "When can we go home?"
I love you. We need to say goodbye to these lovely people, though.
Yeah, thank you, darling.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
That's right. That's right.
Sorry, Katie's just gone upstairs to. Oh, hang on. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Puppies!
We have matching hair.
Oh, look, there's your new Teddy. He's your new friend.
Oh, is he a noodle? Is he a noodle?
He's a poodle.
Oh, he's a proper dog.
Yeah, he's a poodle.
Damn, we don't know about these fancy proper dogs. We have just these half-breed lunatics that cost 3 times the price.
Is he a poodle?
He's a poodle
cavoodle.
crossed with a
Cavalier.
Cavalier, yes.
Cavoodle.
Yeah,
You got it.
He's got a cavoodle as well.
Yeah. Oh, they're the
He's
best.
so cute.
Yes, he's so cute. He's grumpy though. He wants
Look
to
at
go
Teddy.
for walks.
Teddy's just been napping, I think, so he's a bit tired.
Is he a what is he?
Toy poodle.
Toy or miniature?
Well, he's both his parents are toys, but he's like a gigantic.
He's a
toy.
gigantic toy. He's a chunky toy.
He is. He's just full of fluff.
I love it. I love the photos you've done with him.
Size, but he's beautiful.
Oh,
Oh, Frank, he's freaking out.
Frankie!
Frankie wants to go. What he normally does when we're not in the Rona, he will run around the lab and he'll run from person to person, give them all hugs and kisses. But now that's like the spreading of the Rona, so we don't do that anymore.
Oh, Frankie!
And
You're
he's
so
the Paul
cute.
Atkins of the family, like, because he's the extrovert and I'm the cat that sits at home. So, but
Hey,
Frankie,
this should be the podcast. We should just do a podcast with everyone showing each other's puppies.
Yeah, totally.
Puppy cast.
Totally. I mean, then we can take it to the park and talk to people at the park.
Oh,
that'd be so good.
We get to finally take him for walks on the weekend because he
Oh,
had all these puppy vaccinations.
yeah, great.
Take
He's
him
so
out.
cute,
He's just beautiful. It's the best colour.
isn't it?
That
Eh?
colour is heaven.
Yeah. We love him. He's pretty cute.
He's gorgeous.
I
Are
mean-
you having trouble finding people to groom him with the Rona and everything?
Yes, absolutely. So we've got a like a meet-up thing with the groomer on Saturday because
Yeah.
she's like, oh, we should have had him in sooner. And I'm like, well, I can't bring him in sooner. So she's like, okay, I just can't wait anymore. She says, bring him in because I want you to I want to show you what you need to do with him at home, but you have to stand outside and watch through the window.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. It's all so loopy.
Fine, whatever I have to do, I'll do. But I think she's just more concerned with the socialisation of getting him used to the sensation of being groomed and all of that sort of stuff.
Oh, he's a good boy.
Oh, yes, puppy kisses. We love puppy
I
kisses.
know. They're
Oh,
the best.
he's my new obsession. I just love him so much.
I have the same problem.
Oh, he vomited. My God.
Great. Puke face. It's
telling
all
me-
good.
No,
It's a little bit of vomit, it's just a bit of vomit. It's fine. As my sister, when I'd freak out when the kids would take a shit in the bath and I'd be like, that's it, burn the house down. She'd be like, what's a little bit of poo? It's just poo.
Oh, no. Teddy.
Oh, Teddy, you're letting the side down. Do you know what? It could be good for you, a bit of a lactic acid kind of sort of wash thing.
That's right. Could be like an acid face.
Yeah, all the salons are closed, so we're all hairy and gross. Like, well, it can't be bad, surely.
Right,
Just a bit of puke.
Exactly.
So
All right,
cute.
I better go take him back down anyway.
Okay.
But it's lovely to see you, sis.
Thanks, Kristen. See ya.